Hello, good day. My name is Mike Bryant. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about independent contracting. This is being brought to you by the Kentucky Innovation Network, with offices at Morehead State University, Eastern Kentucky University, Ashland, London, and actually all across Kentucky. They assist in finding patents, business creation, funding, and pretty much anything that you might need assistance with if you have a technology based company. They are the driving force behind TechBase 10, which is creating a network of IT professionals, businesses, and technologists in Kentucky. And to learn more about the Innovation Network, simply go to kyinnovation.com. To learn more about TechBase 10, visit techbase10.com. And to speak with someone about the Kentucky Innovation Network or TechBase 10, just contact the Morehead State University ICC at 606 783 9536. Well, first off, we're going to talk about some of the groundwork you may need to do before you get into independent contracting, and that is setting up a business. Now, there are essentially five kinds of businesses you can create, and I'll go over those briefly. The first of those is called a sole proprietorship. With a sole proprietorship, there is no legal separation between the company and the person doing the work. Um, the taxes are very easy to do. The accounting it can be very easy. It's very easy to start. You don't have to do any paperwork or anything. You just simply go out and start doing work. The problem with this is that the liability is very high. There's no distinction at all between the company and yourself. This is typically a bad idea for that purpose. Another sort of business entity is a partnership, which is pretty much the same as a sole proprietorship, except it has more than one person. Now, each partner shares all the liability of the company. Again, this is very easy to start, and again, it's typically considered a bad idea. There is something called a C corporation. This is typically the kind of businesses you think of when you hear the term corporation. They have to have a set of officers with meetings and reports that have to be filed. They have shareholders, typically pretty complicated to set up, to run. The accounting and taxes are complicated. The company does, however, have the liability. Of course, sometimes the corporate veil can be pierced and individuals within the company can be held personally liable, but typically the company has liability for things that the company does. Now, one issue with this is that C corporations suffer from something called double taxation, which is not a very good thing unless you really enjoy paying taxes. And this is considered generally not a good idea depending on the kind of business you're going to form. For most small IT contracting companies, it's probably not a good idea. Another kind of business entity is the S corporation or an S corp. Now, these have simpler rules typically than a C corporation, but you still have to have shareholders and officers. You do avoid the double taxation issue with C corporations, but these can be somewhat complicated to start. At most, you can have only 100 shareholders, which most of the time isn't an issue. It does allow pass-through taxation, which means the monies go from the company directly to you for taxation purposes, and the company has liability, which is really good. It's sort of the best of both worlds. The company passes through the money to you individually for tax purposes, but the company has liability in most cases. So depending on your situation, this could be a good idea. And that brings us to my favorite, the limited liability company, which is easy to start. The company has the liability. It allows pass-through taxation. The accounting can be somewhat complicated. The taxes are relatively easy, and in most cases, this is a very good idea because it's really simple to start, really simple to manage, and provides the pass-through taxation, and the company has liability in most cases. Now, no matter what, it's always good advice to seek the advice of an attorney or to contact the Innovation Center for assistance prior to forming a company. And no matter what sort of company you do form, always have a separate checking account for your business. Liability insurance can be a very good thing and will be required for some contracts. You just really have to shop around for the pricing, but it's probably not going to be too terribly expensive. You're really going to want to find and learn some accounting software. It will make life much easier, and we'll get more on that a little bit later. So once you have a company formed, you need to let people know about it a little bit. And there are a few ways you can do that without spending a lot of money. You will need a logo, and this may seem quite expensive, but actually it can be very inexpensive. You can get a quality, professionally designed logo for less than $100. I would suggest just going to Google and searching for business logo, and you'll find a number of companies that provide that service. You're going to need to get some business cards to hand out to folks and stuff. I would recommend actually paying for some quality business cards. They're not that expensive at all. You don't want to get those cheap free business cards that have advertisements on the back for the company that print the cards and stuff. Just spend a little bit of money and get some quality business cards that'll make a difference. Websites these days are really inexpensive to build. You don't need to go out and hire someone to do that typically. There are some tools out there that will allow you to do that for free. Again, you can just Google that. You'll need a Facebook page depending on the kind of business you're doing, and you definitely want to get involved with LinkedIn for professional networking and contacts. So once you let people know that you have a company out there, sometimes just having a website isn't enough for people to knock down your door, so you need to go out and find some work. Now, there are a few ways to do that, and what I'm going over is some of the things that I have used personally, and some of my experiences with these kinds of things, so your mileage may vary. You can go do cold calls and just call somebody up out of the blue and ask them for work. If you have the smooth talking skills of a salesperson, go for it. I have never had success with that, and I've tried it a little bit. You can do advertising. It may work wonders, but it can be expensive and very time consuming. Advertising maybe in trade magazines. If you're going after a specific industry, you can maybe go into an industry specific magazine or website and do some advertising, and may get some good return on investment from that. Writing and blogging can be a wonderful way to find work. If you write or talk about something, then typically people are going to assume you know what you're talking about. So just writing, blogging can really get your name out there and really make you seen as an IT expert. Working with a partner can be exceptionally wonderful, especially if you're in a situation like I am, where I live in a rural area and it's hard to find larger contracts. To work with a partner that lives in a metro area who can go out and find the contracts and work with the people to get the contract signed, and then you pay them a finder's fee or a percentage or whatever, that can work really well. Another thing that I have had success with is just scouring the message boards. Go to user groups like my company does PHP Java development, so may find a PHP user group in your area. Go to their website. A lot of times companies will contact them for job postings. A lot of times these companies don't really know what they need. They may think they need somebody full time, or they may think they need a contractor. They really just need some problem resolved. So if you can contact them, you can actually find some work fixing whatever issues they have. It can turn into full-time employment, as it actually has for me, or you can do contracting. That's is really just a great way to find work. And of course, the best way to find work is through word of mouth. Once you get established and have solid ethical business practices, good pricing, word of mouth is your best friend. Now, once you find it, you've got to do the work, and you always need to be aware of the project size. You can bite off more than you can chew, and I have done that. And then once you do that, you have to figure out a way around that. And one of the things you can do sometimes when you have more than you can do personally is hire people or subcontract people. Now, what my company does is 1099 contractors, because I typically don't have enough work to keep actual employees on the books. The accounting with contractors is much, much easier, and the legal issues are so much simpler with contractors versus employees. Also, you don't want to have an employee. Employee is somebody that's going to be there even part-time every week for so many hours that you're on the hook to pay them for. A contractor, if you have work, you can give it to them. If you don't, then you don't have to give them any work or money. The issue, of course, is with contractors, they may not be available when you need them. Even for small one-person projects, I would highly recommend an issue tracking system, a document control system, and a source management system. Even if it's a small one-person project, trust me, you will need a source control system. And it doesn't matter if it's Mercurial, Git, CVS, Subversion, whatever one you want to use. Pick one, learn it, use it. It will save you heartache in the long run. Now, something I like to do is to create a project portal for clients to view progress. They can view documents, prototypes, things like that. Sometimes the clients aren't going to use it, but it does add a level of professionalism to the project, I believe. Now, in the contracting process, at some point during the negotiations, you're going to start talking about pricing. And this is always a tough situation. But one thing to remember is they trust in you that you can do this. So you're already talking to them about how much it's going to cost, so you don't have to sell them on your ability. What you need to determine is, are you going to be very cheap, somewhere in the middle, or very expensive? And if you think of this like a bell curve, there are going to be outliers that are very cheap and outliers that are very expensive, and then everybody else is going to be in the middle. Avoid that terrible middle. That's where everyone else is, and I believe you really want to set yourself apart. So be high or be low. If you're in the middle with everybody else, then you're fighting with everybody else. You're just one face in the crowd. Something you can do is use a small project as a loss leader. I have seen this done very well. I worked on a project, I think it was maybe $2,000, $2,500 project, very small project, that later parlayed into about a $150,000 project on which my company was the primary. This can work wonders. A very small sort of introductory project for a low price to show them what you can do, to give them a wow factor, especially when you're starting out. That can work wonders. Another approach is something I call the razor and the blade approach. You give them the razor and sell them the blades. You can give them some software for free, provide maintenance support at a cost later on. This works pretty good for software as a service rather than one-off contracts. But you can always work your way into that maybe. And something to always remember when you're talking about pricing is you can always go down. If they ask you what you want per hour and you say, I want $35, they say, okay. You can't go back and say, I meant to say 50. What you can do is say, I want 75, and they'll say, we'll offer you 60, and you say, okay, I'll take 60. It's difficult to go up, but you can always go down. So start high and work your way down. Now, there are two ways that you're going to see pricing as you do independent contracting. That's by the project and by the hour. by the project, they're going to want to know, the client is going to want to know, okay, how much is it going to cost me to do this project? And it's very difficult to know exactly how much to charge without knowing a lot of the details and the scope of the project. It's really just a something you're going to have to get used to doing and kind of feel your way through. Sometimes you can get pretty good detailed information and you know what they want. Simply what I do then is take my hourly rate, multiply it by my estimate, and that is the project price. Of course, adding some fluff value for unknowns. Now, I think it's a good idea, personally, to charge an upfront fee, say around 20%, and then a sign-off fee at the end of 30%. That's 50% of your total project cost. And then find 1 to 3 or so sort of major milestones in between that. Once you complete that milestone, then they give you another 10, 15, 20%, whatever, so that it totals 100% over the course of the project, but you get 20% up front, 30% at the end, the other 50% throughout the middle of the project in stages as you complete various parts of the project. It gives you some upfront capital to work with. It gives the client some sense of mind that they're not paying you 100% up front for work that they haven't even seen yet. Another pricing mechanism is, of course, by the hour, which is the best for the contractor because you just write down how many hours you work on something per week, send them an invoice, and they pay you. Companies aren't going to want to do this. They want to know exactly how much the project is going to cost. And even if you do work by the hour, a lot of times they're going to say, you know what, fine, we'll pay you by the hour, but you're only going to work X number of hours a week. Or they may say, you know, there's a project time frame, only this many hours is going to be allowed within the project. So you're back to by the project pricing. So those are just two different kinds of ways that you're going to see the pricing come about in doing independent contracting. A lot of times, a client may ask you to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. And all an NDA is it's an agreement saying that you won't give away their trade secrets. It's a typical business process. It happens all the time. They're typically 1 page or less, maybe a couple of pages. Usually a lot of boilerplate legal jumbo. It's very common. Nothing to be worried about. Of course, it's good to always have an attorney review it before you sign anything. I have a copy of an NDA lying around on my hard drive. If I need one, I can print it and send it off. Just be aware that NDAs are something that you will potentially see. Now, another piece of paper that you're going to sign is called the contract. Now, pricing is a small portion of contract negotiation. There are a number of other things to be sure that the contract has in there. One of those is the invoice schedule and payment terms with late fees. For example, the contract might specify that you will invoice every 2 weeks with the net 15 payment, which means they have 15 days from receipt to pay. If they fail to pay within a timely manner, then you may do a 10% per month late fee. If that's specified in the contract, then you're covered. Now, what the client's response is going to be pretty much every time, we don't need to have that late fee clause in there because we always pay on time. We cut our checks the 1st and the 15th of every month. That's just our business practice, so we don't need the late fee. Then your response to that is, well, that's fine. You pay on the 1st and the 15th every month. You don't ever pay late, then it's fine to leave it in there because it's not going to affect you anyways. Something you're also going to need are effective and termination dates of the contract, basically when work starts and when work stops. The work product. The work product is a definition of what you are doing. If it's a website, maybe a prototype of the website or a description of the website. If it's some software, description of what the software does. This can be a sticky point because at some point, if there are issues about whether or not you met the contractual obligations, the work product could be used as the determining factor. So in the contract, if you say I'm going to build a website, well, what does that mean? Later on, if the client says you didn't build it to our specifications, and you say, well, yes, I did, because all that we agreed on was a website, and I built you a website, and they say, yeah, but the website was supposed to have X, Y, and Z. And if the work product definition in the contract is the words a website, then it's going to be difficult in court or mediation or to even work that out. So the work product really needs to be very detailed and specify exactly what you're doing. Be sure and also to provide detailed information of who retains copyright to the work product during the work and afterwards. So if halfway through this project the client calls you and says they have to cancel the contract, okay, who owns the copyright to that work up to that point? The project completion timelines are important so that the client knows that on such and such date certain things will be done. Mechanisms for contract termination. Sometimes this happens, and one side or the other needs to terminate a contract for a number of reasons. It's just good to specify within the contract itself how that contract can be terminated, whether it's by a certified mail or an email or a fax. However, just be sure you specify in there that either party can cancel the contract with written notice, 15 days notice or whatever it is. Just it needs to be in there. Intellectual materials, who owns what? If you own certain pieces of code, certain libraries or something that you may use a lot in various projects, then if you use those libraries that you own copyright to in this project for a client, you want to give them an indefinite copyright to use those libraries, but you want to maintain ownership of those so that you can reuse them later in other contracts. That's common, it's in most contracts, but it needs to be there. You need to specify warranty, if any, for the project. Also, damages. If your work does not meet the criteria of the client, what recourse do they have? Will you pay the money back? Will you redo the work? Other things like that. Those need to be specified within the contract. Also, changes. I've yet to work on a contract in 16 years that never had changes. There will be changes to the scope of the project. There will be changes to what they want, what they think they want, what you think you can do. So just specify that on the contract. It keeps everybody kind of on an even keel, on an even playing field. Things happen. Just be aware up front that things will happen and provide a mechanism for change. That includes letting them know that you're going to be late on a deliverable and maybe there's a penalty for that in payment, or if there's a change in scope that they need, then provide a way for them to notify you of that, and then you get paid more or something. Just provide some way to handle changes because they will happen, even in small projects. Further, even though when you're signing a contract, no one wants to think that at some point you might end up mad at each other, it can happen. So provide a mechanism for dispute resolution within your contract. Whether or not you're going to go suing each other or do mediation or whatever, just provide that, and under which states' laws will be used to handle disputes. Now, I've already talked about this a lot, but it's very important. Beware of scope creep. Give yourself a way to charge for extra work, or give yourself a clean way out of the contract if it gets too unwieldy. Sometimes clients want a lot for free. That's just the way things are. Give yourself a good way out of that contract, or give yourself a good way to charge for all that extra work. There are a lot of good boilerplate contracts out there. Um, Again, I have some contracts that I can use and just change a few things here and there, and can save a lot of time in hiring an attorney for every contract that I do. You can also go online to find some various boilerplate contracts you can use, but of course the standard disclaimer is always have an attorney review and approve your contracts before you sign anything. Now, with warranty and support of a contract, it's always, I think, just a good business process to provide some level of warranty after the close of the project. Mill Creek Software typically provides a 3-month no-charge warranty. So what that means is from the project close date for 3 months, issues and bugs will be fixed for free. That does not include enhancements. And the reason it's 3 months is because if a client doesn't bother to look at something you've built for them for 12 months, and then they come back to you and say, oh, this doesn't work, there's been a whole year that has gone by and you've forgotten all the stuff, so it's going to take some time to get back in there. 3 months seems to be a fair amount of time. It's a quarter of a year for them to find any issues and get back with you. And it's a good idea to have ongoing maintenance, pricing, and other things like that built into the original contract, or you can just deal with it later, either way you want. Remember, warranty does not mean getting stuff for free other than bug fixes and issues that should have been in the original work product. Something else to remember with warranty is the quality of support can kill you or can make you. If you have a $1,000 project and there is a bug in the software, and you immediately find a workaround for them, fix the issue, and push it so that they can continue working, they're probably going to come back to you when they have a $500,000 project. Likewise, if you have a $250,000 project and there's a very trivial aesthetic bug that you take 30 days to get around to working, if they have a $1,000 project, they're probably not going to call you. So the quality of your support can really help. Now, the day-to-day management of your business, again, we've already gone over some of this, but you are going to need some sort of issue tracking tool, especially if you use subcontractors or employees to sort of task them with various things to do. Source control, again, I don't care what you use. Trust me, please, for small one-person projects up to large teams, you will need some source control. A document management system to provide you with revision history so you can go back and look at old versions of documents and things like that can be very beneficial. Some accounting software package. I use QuickBooks Online. I think it's around $20 a month. Very good software. Handles invoicing and things easily. Time tracking, I think, is an added feature that I don't pay for, but that you can have. But you're going to need that. You're going to need some way to manage your invoices and time tracking for you or for your contractors if you're paying or billing by the hour. Now, that's a nutshell of IT software contracting. Some things to remember. There is no such thing as a magic bullet in the world of business. If there was a simple method to getting contracts and making tons of money and hiring lots of people, I would be on a yacht right now in the Caribbean rather than doing a screencast. Try out different things and do what works for you. Always remember that IT is ever expanding field, and try to stay up on new technologies. That can become a challenge sometimes, but Something to always remember is IT is fun. Don't let it get to be too much of a job. Always remember to have fun being a techie geek. And again, this is being brought to you by the Kentucky Innovation Network, with offices at Morehead State University, Eastern Kentucky University, Ashland, London, and all over Kentucky. They provide services to technology and innovation-based companies throughout Kentucky. They provide assistance in funding, patents, business creation, and tons of other more stuff. They are the driving force behind TechBase 10, which is creating a network of IT professionals, businesses, and technologists in Kentucky. To learn more, visit the Kentucky Innovation Network at kyinnovation.com. To learn more about TechBase 10, visit techbase10.com. To speak with someone, call the Morehead State University ICC at 606-783-9536. My name is Mike Bryant. I hope you have gained some valuable information from this and have a wonderful day.